Hey, it's Al Angelo from A Plus Racing, bringing you Q&A Monday. I had to think about there for a little bit because we're not working on our Econobil Spec Miata. Hey, lots of emails and comments about questions to answer on Monday. So I think the way I'm going to do it is I got them all up here. This is on my channel, and I can push comments, and it just shows me all the comments that you guys have been putting in. So let's just take on some of these, all right? We'll just start off with this one up here, and we'll go right down. So the first comment comes from, looks like Gordon Knuckler? Clunkler? The Clunker. All right, so Gordon Clunker, 53 minutes ago, he asked me a question off topic. When do you run a thermostat in your race cars? Do you run a heater core? Hey, to be legal, we have to run the heater core. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. Have I seen some with just the two copper fittings sticking out of the firewall? Yeah, I've seen that. Okay. Sometimes I look the other way. But you're supposed to run the heater core in there. And as far as thermostats go, I've ran them without it and I've ran them with it. I'm kind of more into running them with the thermostat. And here's the reason why. Is that when you run it without the thermostat, sometimes they run too cold. And the PCM needs to see that the vehicle has come up to operating temperature before it starts controlling everything. So the computer is programmed that when it's at ambient temperature, until it gets up to like 190 degrees, it really doesn't control a lot of timing and all kinds of stuff like that. The air-fuel mixture, it doesn't look at what the O2 sensor is doing. It just kind of like waits for it to get up to operating temperature. Once it gets up to operating temperature, all right, I'm going to control everything. Here we go. And it starts moving stuff around. So I have seen it when they don't get up to full temperature without the thermostat, so I do run the thermostat, especially if I'm doing long endurance races that run through the nighttime. I use the thermostat because at nighttime when it's really cold, when we run like the 25-hour in December, then I need that thermostat in there to help hold that coolant back so it stays in the engine a little longer and then it switches back and forth. So I hope that answered your question. But yeah, lately now, the last few years, I've been making sure that they all have a thermostat in there. All right. Hope that answered your question. Hey, thanks for the comment. All right. The next one. So Patrick, this guy. Mike said this, Mickanish 3387. I've got this thing with my Spec Miata where I let off the gas, especially at high RPMs, and bluish smoke comes out from the exhaust. I read somewhere that it could be because of the crosshatch in the block that causes the piston rings to line up and allow oil bypass through getting burnt. What are your thoughts? My thoughts are that's a lie. And so survey says that's a lie, buddy. Yeah, that's not true at all. I don't know who would ever wrote something like that, but no. All right, so this is my opinion. Well, crosshatch. Let me just the crosshatch on the cylinders. That's to help lubricate the piston for the piston skirt and the cylinder wall. And then what happens is the oil ring comes down and it squeegees the excess off, and then it just leaves a microscopic little bit of oil in that crosshatch to help lubricate the piston as it goes up and down. So that's what the crosshatch is for. As far as lining up the piston rings, we stagger those when we build the engine. They don't move around. Wherever you set them, that's where they're set until that piston comes back out again. So we stagger those in a certain clock so that we don't have any oil passage moving. Here's your problem, buddy. You subscribed, right? Okay, as long as you subscribe. All right. So I think it's your valve stem seals. All right, that's what I think you got going on. You could do a compression test and make sure that your compression is good. Make sure that when you do the compression test that you watch the video on compression test, because I make money when you watch it. But make sure that the throttle is held wide open, okay, when you're cranking it. But you should have like over 150 pounds on a decent engine. If you got like 140, yeah, it's a little bit tired. But I think if you're letting off the gas and you're getting bluish gray smoke out of there, obviously it's burning oil because of the blue-gray smoke. But I think you're probably looking at valve stem seals more than anything else. They can be replaced in the car. They're kind of a pain in the ass, but I think that's what you're going to be looking for. All right? I hope that answers your question, buddy. Give me a message back if it fixed it or if you need any more help with that. All right. First thing you got to do is remove the radiator. Well, yeah, you can remove the radiator. It's not usually the first thing I do. I disconnect the battery first. That way I'm in the back of the car, I disconnect the battery, I go inside the car, I take out the shifter, and then either I go to the front of the car and take everything out there, or I start underneath the car. So wherever you want to start is good. You know, starting with the radiator works for you, it works for you. And that comes from Cameron Conover. All right. And then S.W. Douglas, who I think I've seen a lot of questions from him before. So on my son's Spec Miata, I wrap the padding in cheap pieces of leather. It should help prevent wear and tear on the padding as he gets in and out of the car. That sounds like a good idea. I just can't afford it. Okay, so yeah, you know, maybe you should market that. Remember, I got you the idea. All right. Yeah, I think that's a marketing device right there, because that would make the roll bar padding last longer. Because usually I get like 2 seasons out of roll bar padding, and with them sliding in and out of the car, they're always breaking them off and rubbing them, wearing them down and stuff like that. So that's a pretty good idea with that leather, and it's kind of a fire resistant thing. All right. And then we got one from Meathead Racing. That's my knife. Hey, I made that from a sway bar. Pounded out of a sway bar, like from Forged in Fire when I used to watch that show. Somebody thinks I'm the man. I am a man, have always been a man, and plan on being a man for the rest of my life. No time have I ever thought of maybe about switching teams. I like the team I'm on. Such great content. Love your teaching style. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. Would love a lesson on measuring the clearance to get the right size bearing. Yeah. You know what? We're building an engine right now, a racing motor. So I tell you what, Mike, I'll go ahead and videotape that. Most of the time I just use plastic gauge. I've been pretty lucky with that. I know it's not a lot of big time builders use inside mics, outside mics. I've just been using the plastic gauge, and it seems like it's worked for me for 20 years. I've really never had a problem, but you know, you're right. I'll go ahead and do the video as we put that thing together. I'll do that plastic gauge for you. All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for that comment. Love the hood prop. Hey, I got those hood props from Moss Miata. Mike and I ordered some of those. And they are really nice. They were super expensive when they first came out. Yeah, I think they were like almost $100. So I ordered a few of them, a couple of them. And then I need to order a few more. But I looked the other day, and I think they're down around the $50 range. I think they came down in price a little bit. Can you imagine that? And so I do need to order some more of those. But yeah, those little hydraulic prop rods are really nice. Thanks, Mike. Can this ever happen to a harmonic valve that doesn't fall off? Okay, so he must be talking about when you get the engine knock. I've only seen that engine knock happen, Mr. Six Center. The six center. I've only seen that happen when the harmonic balancer falls off on an MB. I've seen harmonic balancers fall off on an NA, and it didn't loosen up all the flywheel bolts. But on the NBs, I have seen that happen, but only when the harmonic balancer falls off. That's the only time I've ever seen it. All right. I hope that answered your question, buddy. Wondering what seat you use. I am a 14, so no need to cut the tunnel. Need the seat back angle to match the angle of the floor to rear of the cockpit angle, so I can get the seat to go back as far as I can get it. Thank you. Great info. Love this channel, or great info on this channel. All right. So I'm usually using Kirky seats. All right. They do make a drag racing one that's fairly inexpensive. I've used that one. I've used the full containment Kirky. I used to do that solely for me, but every time I built a new car for myself every year, I always left the old Kirky in there. So 3 or 4 of my cars have that full containment Kirky in there. And, you know, it's a little work getting that to fit, but they do fit. And so, but you're right. You know, with you having a little 14-inch seat, you shouldn't have any problem getting that, getting the seat in there to match what you're looking for without having to modify the tunnel. I don't know where you're located at, buddy, but here close to us is Sonoma Raceway. It's about an hour, 2 hours from here. And so they have a really big selection of seats, and they're all on pedestals, and you can go in there and sit on those until you find the one that you like. They have a really big selection. I would guess they probably have at least 20 seats in there, different sizes and models. So That's always a good place to start. And then once, even if it's not a seat that you want to buy, like most of those are FIA seats, but you can get the specifications about the angles that it's designed for, and then you can match that to like any other manufacturer seat, you know, a Kirky or Unishield. I used to use Unishields in the beginning because they were fairly inexpensive, but they all seem pretty safe so long as you install them properly. Okay, don't shortcut the installation. Make sure you use good quality bolts, that you've got good backing, you know, metal backing, that you use the backstabber, that you got bolt that thing in there right. Even though it might be an inexpensive seat, you can still need to make sure that you bolt that in there correctly. All right, that's a great question though, and so that came from Bent Ring 333. All right, here, Mike Dave again. I'm halfway through, wondering if the thicker radiator and race roll bar will clear the fan. The race roll bar. I'm not sure what the race roll bar has to do with the thick. Oh, all right. I don't know what the roll bar means, but so yes, I know what you're talking about. The fan that's bolted on to the back of the radiator, it starts getting closer and closer to the engine, and then I believe it wants to hit the air tube that comes around. And I have had that problem. But usually when we do like a racing air filter, that tube is flexible, and I can move that filter back a little bit and give me the room I need. But I've never had one where I'm like, I can't run this radiator because it's too thick. I've never had that problem. I've always managed to finagle the radiator in there with the fan on there too. You know, and I do know a lot of racers who don't even use a fan. So providing the car is moving, it has enough airflow through the front of it, if you have all of the air ducting in there, that they don't even use the radiator. But when you stop, like full course red, you got to turn the engine off, because if you sit there and let it run idling on the grid with no airflow, it'll overheat. All right. Thanks, Mike. All right. I love the blown up diff on the branch. Yeah, that broke at Laguna. That was funny because it came in on the tow truck. They dropped the car off. We went to push the car forward, and the pinion gear fell out onto the ground, the whole pinion gear. And I looked at my buddy as we were pushing it. I was like, never seen that before. So yeah, on the bottom of it has got this huge rip where the pinion gear fell out the bottom. No arrow chute under the tray, or was it already off? I understand not having it leads to bad. Yeah, you're right, Mike, on that. You got to make sure you put that shield underneath the tray. You can get underneath the engine. You can get away with it during the wintertime up here because it's fairly cold. But man, once springtime comes, you got to get those back on there. I order a ton of new ones every spring because they always get cracked, broken, ripped off, left off. So before the summertime comes, I make sure that all my cars are equipped with the new plastic cover under the engine. That helps force the air through the radiator instead of going under the radiator. It forces that air through the radiator. So it is very important. Keen eye there, buddy. Keen eye. All right. Might be a dumb question, but what will a flattened pinch weld affect the structure check? Nah, I don't think so. I think I answered this on an email you sent to me also. That, you know, if you want it to look nice, go ahead and straighten them. A lot of ours are all bent up. They've been bent from running over curbs and people jacking them up not right and stuff like that. I have straightened them, and then I think you asked, well, will it weaken it? You know, if you go back and forth enough, yeah, sure, it's gonna rip off. But you know, if you do it a couple of times, I don't think you're gonna have a problem. I usually just grab it with a big pair of channel locks and kind of straighten it out. Maybe tap it around with a hammer and dolly. For those of you who don't know, he's talking about where the upper top body meets the bottom body and the seam that they put the two together along the rocker panel. So that's what he's talking about. Yeah, lunch is about to end, so I'm going to have to wrap this video up soon. All right, so let's see. Love the videos. I have 5 Miatas myself, but no builder around in my area in MS. Can you get a full rebuilt kit and where from? Oh, so let's be talking about the gaskets. So, you know, I used to buy the gasket kit and from a couple different places online, and man, it was like $400. It was like, holy cow, it's a lot of money. So and then you get a whole bunch of gaskets you don't need that don't fit what you're working with. So now I just go to the auto parts store and I just buy the individual ones I need. But like when I gotta do like a water pump gasket or something like that, or thermostat housing gasket, I just buy like 10 of them at a time, and then I just keep them on the shelf so that I always have those. Head gaskets, I usually have a couple of those. Intake manifold gaskets, a couple of those. But so that's how I buy it now. I say it probably only cost me less than $150 by just buying all of the gaskets at the parts store at one time, just the ones I need. And sometimes you can get just a head set, especially if you need the valve stem seals. You can get the head set. Then all you really need is, water pump gasket and the pan gasket kit. So, and that question comes from Scott, you lucky
Scott Kulicki
Epper. Yeah, that question comes from that guy right there. All right. And it looks like MGBXR4I. Well, he's from the UK. I'm glad that people in the UK watch my channel, and I hope you don't think that I talk funny because, well,
Cheers,
we
mate.
think you guys talk kind of funny. All right. The PP sleeve and bolt is a major pain in countries that get a lot of rain. I can see that if it gets corroded down inside there. We have had problems getting them out. You saw me pull that other one out the other day with just my hands. That never happens. Okay, I saw it hanging down there. I'm like, I think I can just wiggle that thing out. A lot of times we end up getting a couple of screwdrivers and we kind of work them out. Somebody also said something about not pulling the top ones off because it ruins the PPF. I've never had that problem ever. I've been doing it like this for 20 years. So I just knock them out. It makes it a lot easier for me to get the PPF off of there. And I've never had a problem with not aligning. The alignment part of it's in the front. That's why those nuts are on a slider, because it's slotted up in the front. So the rear end it's all bolted together, and it's got that bushing that makes it go in a certain way. And then in the front is where it has its adjustment. And that's only because we don't have a rear end that's going up and down like a lot of vehicles. Our differential is bolted solid, and we have independent rear suspension. That's why the slip yoke is ineffective on the drive shaft. It doesn't move back and forth because the whole thing is rigid. I've actually built the Miata without the body, by just using the PPF and the subframes and the wheels and have all the steering. We used to have one here, and we used to have that as my learning thing. And we used to take it apart and bring it in the classroom and put it together in the classroom. We had the whole Miata put together in the classroom, and then the kids had to take it back apart and put it back out in the shop. That used to be kind of fun. All right. Thank you for all you do, from teaching kids to showing old farts like me how to do this stuff. You're a hero. Well, that's really nice, Patrick. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been teaching these kids 20 years on this platform, and a lot of kids have came through this class, and they're doing this for a living. Some are even working on the on racing teams. All right, so let's see. Carlos Xterra 976. I'm installing a new oil pump. It has an O-ring installed. I noticed the factory pump had an O-ring and silicone along the back sealing surface. I'm afraid if I just install the new one with the O-ring and nothing else, like in your video, that it will leak. It appears that the block oil can get to the back of the pump, and just a metal to metal connection besides the O-ring, it will leak. Am I missing something? P.S. I love your videos. I've been building a spec matter for the last year and am almost done. Currently doing a basic engine build. This channel has made this process so much easier and saved my life numerous times, especially since I knew very little about car computers. All right. Hey, Carlos, thanks for that. That's really nice of you. Hey, believe me, when they switched to the O-ring from the gasket, I sweated it out. I remember putting the O-ring in there and the gasket and sealer, because I was worried about the same thing that you're worrying about. And then one day I just had to go, you know what? I just got to trust Mazda that they know what they're doing. Their engineers are way smarter than I am. So I put just the O-ring on there, just like I did on the video. No problem. All right, no problem whatsoever. So I just use the O-ring. That's it. I don't use the gasket anymore. The only time that the gasket is ever used any longer is if you have an old pump that doesn't have the O-ring. But all the ones that I've taken apart after like the mid-90s, they all had the O-ring. The only bad thing is when you buy the oil pump new, even from Mazda, it doesn't come with the O-ring. So I have an O-ring assortment kit, and I just go in there until I find one that that fits in the hole, and that when I put my fingernail on it, I can feel that the rubber is higher than the aluminum surface of the oil pump. And that's how I know I got the right one. But yeah, I was afraid about that in the beginning too, but I didn't have any problems, and you shouldn't have any either. Okay. Hey, thanks for the comment. All right, I think we're gonna wrap this up. I got down through a bunch of them. We got a few more to go. I'll try to catch those in the next couple of weeks. But I want to thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. Thanks for chiming in your questions. I'm glad I could help you fix your Miatas, and I'll see you at the racetrack. Bye now.